Sens Talk is proud to be powered by Ottawa Interlock Repair for the 2025-26 Sens season. For all your interlock needs, visit interlockrepair.com. Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon Plant and I am your host. As I'm sure you can already tell, today's video is going to be a little bit different. I just basically want to give my thoughts on what overall was a tough night last night. Obviously the biggest game in Canada, that being the Sens and Habs, ended in a late collapse for Ottawa. But all jokes aside, the biggest game in Canada, that being the Toronto Blue Jays, also, ended in a late collapse and in absolute heartbreaking fashion as well. So we'll start with the Blue Jays and what was an unbelievable season for the Toronto Blue Jays. And what I want to say right off the bat is the Toronto Blue Jays brought baseball back to Canada. You know, it was always a sport that was played here. I played it growing up. I'm sure many of you played it as well. But the Blue Jays this year really brought back the game into this great nation. And that's the biggest thing out of all of this. Yes, the Blue Jays can compete next year. Yes, the Blue Jays have a solid core and some young bats that absolutely should be back. I mean, holy cow, Ernie Clement, Vladdy Guerrero. I mean, I can go on, and I will in a second here. But the biggest takeaway for me is the way this country rallied behind the Toronto Blue Jays and the game of baseball, the beautiful game. And that's the best thing about all of this, that Canada is back in baseball. And wants to play baseball. I'm sure, it's going to be a lot of new baseball players after what was a fantastic year for the Toronto Blue Jays in the regular season. My goodness. They were projected to have like less than 80 wins. They go on to win the division. In the postseason, they take down the Yankees in decisive fashion, come back and, handle business against Seattle. And then they were just right there in the World Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers, a super team. Everyone said David versus Goliath, but as we saw in that World Series, which frankly, yeah, I'm biased, but I think anyone would agree that was probably the best World Series we've seen in some time. Both teams could have won that. Frankly, the Blue Jays were 2 outs away to win it. So, not David versus Goliath. Those were two super teams, and I hate that narrative. The Blue Jays deserved to be there. They earned to be there, and they were there for a reason, and they were right there as well in terms of winning. So, as a Sens fan, obviously 2016 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Game 7, frankly, I'm going to be quite honest with you, I'm still not over that. This is that on steroids because this was the World Series, a championship, right? I mean, the Sens, that's my team, right? That's the team I do videos for every single game on, right? So I'd be lying if I said that one doesn't hurt a little bit more purely because of the devotion and time I put into it. But as a guy that's played baseball before and a guy that's been watching the Jays since the Adam Lynn days, okay? I mean, I've been a diehard Jays fan through the highs and lows, a lot of lows. Obviously, you got Bautista in that era. My goodness, the bringer of rain. You had Edwin Encarnacion. I mean, Jason Grilli. I mean, I know that's a bit of an insane name pull, but I mean, my goodness, there's been some electric ball with the Blue Jays and then some downs, and then here we are now, right? And again, this postseason had so many great moments as well. And, it really puts everything into perspective where after those Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion years, it was like always like this. When we had Vladdy, we were like, all right, here we go. But it took a bit of time. He said last year was the trailer. This year it's going to be the movie. Well, we waited a couple of years, but the movie was certainly worth it. Vladdy, by the way, I mean, my goodness. This guy would have been the MVP for sure if the Blue Jays would have held on there last night. What an unbelievable postseason, worth every single dollar on that contract. And all the naysayers should shut it because Vladimir Guerrero, defensively, putting on a clinic, and then offensively, I mean, just absurd. Just absurd. Probably the most dangerous bat in the World Series, if not, no, for sure, the most dangerous bat, and not including, I guess, Ernie Clement, who literally broke an MLB record for hits in a single postseason. The Earn Dog, Ernie Clement, a guy that's bounced around the league, who hasn't been a starter really until he came to the Toronto Blue Jays. That's an incredible story, and that's what the Toronto Blue Jays were about this year. Teamwork. And I know that sounds cheesy, but really every single guy on this Blue Jays team, even the bench warmers, even the guys that were left off all the postseason rosters, everyone played a role. And that cannot be said for a lot of teams. It, for a lot of the year, felt like the Blue Jays were a team of destiny. And in Game 7, for most part, it felt like that. They got to Ohtani. They got 4 runs on the board against a tough overall Dodgers, staff. You got, of course, you have to face Glasnow as well. These are not easy pitchers. And they got to them consistently, game after game after game. They were right there in Game 7, but the fairy dust ran out, right? And sports can be beautiful, and it can be cruel. And it was cruel for us, and it was beautiful for the Dodgers, who have won back-to-back, who are, by the way, a great team. deserved it as well. Obviously, they won it, right? So it's not like the Blue Jays got screwed out of this. They just couldn't come clutch and win it. I mean, you go 3 for 17 with runners in scoring position. You have base errors all series. I mean, the ball gets lodged in Game 6. I mean, I've seen it in the past where players have still played that. I don't really like it, but ultimately that's the rule. That's being smart. I can't blame the Dodgers for that. And look, would I like the rule to be changed? Yeah, probably. You know, maybe I'm a little emotional right now. Maybe that's why I'm not thinking clear-headedly. But, you know, I've seen players play that, you know, before. So, ultimately, I understand why they didn't. Why play it if you don't have to when the rule states you don't have to? So, smart play by the Dodgers. That's how teams win, right? But just going to move on from that. So, you know, again, you had no real big hits there late. Obviously, Bo Bichette had a legendary home run in Game 7. Ugh, what a moment that would have been in history if they could have just held on. Not a waste, because, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm probably going to rewatch that a million times this offseason. But it's a bit of a waste in terms of, like, that should be the swing that everyone remembers. I'm not saying it's going to be forgotten, but it's not going to be remembered like it should be. So, you know, on that note, you know, I don't want to focus on the base running issues. I don't want to focus on the runners in scoring position. Ultimately, this Toronto Blue Jays team, no one expected to even be here. They got there. They were 2 outs away. And they proved a lot of people wrong. And they had a hell of a year. And they gave us some amazing moments. I mean, you know, look, in the ALDS, I mean, Vladimir Guerrero, that grand slam, just the absolute... I'll keep it PG, but the way they absolutely smacked around the New York Yankees was just, ooh. And they did it all year. You know, they did it all year. And that's when you're like, oh, this team's legit. You know, like we knew that this is a good ball club. Yeah, they, you know, in the end of the year, it was getting close for the division. They held on. Again, they held on, tiebreaker or not. But you felt like, okay, here we go. This is something special. And they took care of business. Not like, you know, in 2015, 2016, where, yeah, they good teams. Not trying to diss them. But they didn't dominate like this team did. And then they go into Seattle, or play Seattle, I should say, lose the first 2 games, take care of business back in Seattle, battle back, and then George Springer with that massive bomb. And I've never celebrated more in my life for a home run other than Jose Bautista. And that's above Jose Bautista, obviously, that sent them to the World Series, right? That's the biggest swing of Springer's life as a Blue Jay. So... and one of the biggest swings in Blue Jay history, right? So we got so many special moments from this postseason. I'll be rewatching that. I'll be rewatching a lot of these incredible games we saw in the ALDS and in the World Series. 18 innings, 1 game, literally a dugout clearing brawl in Game 7. I mean, this was just the most absolute insane year of baseball I've watched. And again, going back to the main point, the way this has really created a sense of pride in the Blue Jays and a sense of, excitement in baseball. Again, it's going to be great for the game of baseball here in Canada. That's my biggest takeaway again is I'm a big baseball guy. Again, I've played it before when I was a kid and growing up. And, there's nothing I want to see more than Canada do well in baseball and see the game grow in Canada. And this absolutely is going to help it. Just like in 2019, yes, the Raptors finished the job, but just like in 2019, I'm sure there's more basketball players because of that, right? So the same thing could be said with this in the game of baseball. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And that's how we should look at it. It's a team that no one expected to win and go to anything. Maybe make the postseason. Go to the World Series. No, they did that. They were 2 outs away. There's so much to be proud of. And I have to give kudos to, I can go on and on, but is Savage the Savage? I mean, holy cow. This guy a year ago was pitching at NCAA. A year later, pitching like a dog in the World Series multiple times. All throughout the postseason and leading into the postseason. Unbelievable. The Blue Jays have drafted an ace. An ace that's going to be dominating, guaranteeing them basically a win for hopefully decades to come. And we haven't had that for a long time. So, holy cow, you Savage. I mean, have a great summer. Maybe don't pitch for a while. Rest that arm up. It was certainly used quite a bit, but he was dominant. Gosman as well. I mean, my goodness. I mean, he was slicing and dicing. He was dealing in. All of the Blue Jays pitchers really were just dominant. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Scherzer turned the clock back to like 2012. Mad Max returned. Chris Bassett, the hound from the mound in the bullpen, just did his job. Varlin, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Hoffman, yeah, he blew it there, technically, in game number 7. But, I mean, the bats really blew it, if I'm being honest. And he really locked it down overall in the postseason. Don't forget about that crazy, end to the Mariners, where he just sent them all down in a row, right? So he took care of business for the Blue Jays. And I know that's been an issue all year in terms of the home run, but again, the bats really let us down. I don't want to really harp on Hoffman, who had a fantastic postseason after an inconsistent regular season. So, again, like the bullpen did their job. The starting pitchers consistently did their job. The batters did their job too, up until when it mattered most, when they needed to bring in that extra run. They just couldn't. And that sometimes happens. That's baseball, right? That's baseball. That's the beautiful game. That's how it goes. You're 2 outs away. You're 2 inches away, whether it's that IKF, out at the plate, 2 inches away, literally. I know that was a short leash at third. I get what happened because of Game 6 with the ball being lodged in the wall, but you got to have a bit more of a leash off of the third base bag. That would have obviously made the difference and won the World Series for the Blue Jays, but you could say this, what if? That's the biggest thing that hurts the most. It's what if, right? What if IKF was just a couple more feet off the bag? What if the ball didn't get lodged into the wall? What if Paez and the Dodgers didn't catch that ball in the bottom of the ninth? What if? And I think the Blue Jays can come back. I think the Blue Jays absolutely have a young core. The Blue Jays certainly, I would expect anyways, are going to spend a lot of money. And on that note, free agency starts in like a week, I believe. So we'll see what happens with that. So I think they can come back, but it's I think and what if. There's no guarantees anymore, right? And sometimes teams just have one shot. I mean, the Royals had a heartbreaking loss, came back the next year and took care of business. I think the Blue Jays can be like that. There's a lot of examples of that, right? Look at the Florida Panthers in hockey. I know it's a different sport, but the same thing multiple times in a row, right? So the Blue Jays can come back, but it's what if. It's not a guarantee. And that's the thing that hurts the most, right? It's not a guarantee that they're back. So it's hurting. Like, I'm going to keep it PG. It hurts quite a bit right now. It's going to hurt for a long time. Again, I'm still not over 2016. I don't think I'll ever get over this. But this team did so much. It was so exciting to watch, and it was the most fun I've had watching Blue Jays baseball or baseball in general in my entire life. And for that, it's not the end we wanted, but the memories, nonetheless, are going to be fantastic to look back on. And this team accomplished so much. They won a pennant, for goodness sake. I mean, it's not like they didn't accomplish anything. And the team should be proud of themselves. The Blue Jays fans, Canadians, should be proud of themselves. We got a good team here, and hopefully this is just the beginning of, an era of dominance led by Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and hopefully Bo Bichette, who has to return. That's the last thing I wanted to mention. Bo Bichette has to return. My goodness, that guy, again, what a shame. That absolute bomb, in the Game 7 there, and gets overshadowed by a late collapse. So, again, I know I'm a bit rambling at this point, so I'll kind of cut it there on the Blue Jays. I wanted to give my thoughts. I was really hoping I can, celebrate and, put out a video from the bar I was at last night. Just kind of celebrating a Sens win, hopefully, where they came back, but they didn't finish the job there. And the Blue Jays would have held on, both of which did not happen, of course. So, tough night all around. I think I'll get over the Sens loss, but the Blue Jays one's going to be really, really tough. So, here's my reaction, by the way, to the end of the game. Shout out my girlfriend for hitting this clip. We were hoping for magic. It was certainly not magic. So, tough end all around, and hopefully we'll be back next year. So with that, let's get to the next part of this video where I quickly talk about the Sens and Habs game, which, again, was not the worst case scenario, but probably could have been better for Ottawa. Now, before I talk about Ottawa's 4-3 loss last night in overtime to the Montreal Canadiens, I just want to give a quick shout out to Dylan Puckniak and Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment for sponsoring Sens Talk, as Sens Talk is proudly presented by Dylan Puckniak, Ottawa's exclusive realtor with Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment. Providing a bilingual real estate service that serves the Ottawa-Gatineau community, Dylan Puckniak is also specialized in supporting professional athletes that come and go in our city, providing a service that takes care of the people at the highest level. For a realtor experience puts you and your needs first, visit dylanpuckniak.kw.com. That's dylanpuckniak.kw.com to find out more today. Again, thank you to Dylan Puckniak and Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment for sponsoring Sens Talk. So last night, as I already said, the Sens lost 4-3 to the Montreal Canadiens. It did not look good early on. The Canadiens came out flying, scoring 2 goals in the first 10 minutes of the game. Ottawa, in 13 games this year, has given up the first goal 11 times. That obviously cannot happen. It cannot continue to be a trend. You're not going to win many games if you're continually chasing early. So that continues to be a problem for Ottawa. Luckily, though, they were able to come back and fight to at least get a point. Obviously in that second period, we saw a great play by Fabian Zetterlund, who drove to the net, and we need to see more of that from Fabian Zetterlund, creating offensive plays like this. Batherson was lucky as the Habs, he was in the right place at the right time, but he was lucky because the Habs turned it over right to him, and he made no mistake about it, putting it into the back of the net from a weird angle to make it a 2-1 game. Drake Batherson as well extends his point streak to 5 games in a row. At this point, 10 points. He had another point to make it 11 points in his last 5 games. My goodness, he has been so good, but we'll talk about that in a second, because in the dying seconds of the second period of play, Ottawa found a way to tie it up. Claude Giroux, who was originally called for goalie interference, it was reviewed. Luckily, the goal was upheld, and Ottawa would be credited with the goal to tie things up at 2 going to the third period of play. With less than 10 minutes to go, Tim Stützle looked to have won it for Ottawa late with an unreal end-to-end goal as he pulls off a nasty move, putting it top shelf to give Ottawa their first lead of the night to make it 3-2 Sens, giving Stützle his 4th goal in the last 3 games. Batherson, as I already mentioned, has 11 points now in the last 5 games. He leads the team with 15 points in the last 10 games as well. So Batherson has absolutely been on fire ever since returning from injury. And that's exactly what Ottawa needed, especially with Tkachuk out. However, though, in overtime, Drake Batherson giveth and Drake Batherson taketh as he turns it over on a brutal no-look pass in the neutral zone, sending the Habs other way on a breakaway, and they make no mistake about it. They seal the deal to win it 4-3 in overtime. And I should probably mention that in the dying minutes of the third period of play, the Habs would tie it, obviously, at 3-3. So a late collapse there, finished off in overtime. Ottawa does get the point, though. So, they're still in a playoff spot. They're still keeping pace. And that's all you need to do without Tkachuk in the lineup. But obviously, when you had the win right there, you want to win it, right? So, again, it all starts with early starts. You cannot continually be down early. I think that is obvious and doesn't take a genius to figure out, right? So the Sens now have like 5 days until their next game, which is on Thursday against the Boston Bruins. So because of that, hopefully they can go into practice, work on that penalty kill, and most of all, make sure they can get some adjustments in if necessary to ensure that they don't continue to give up the opening goal on one of the opening shots. It just cannot continue to happen. And I will have a video coming out probably in the next couple of weeks after the next Sens break, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, talking about the Sens overall and their goaltending. So we'll see between now and then if their goaltending gets better, but if it doesn't and stays inconsistent, be on the lookout for that video. But besides that, let me know what you think overall in the comment section down below about the Toronto Blue Jays and your Ottawa Senators. Now with that, thank you all for watching. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next couple of days for a very, very special video for, I won't spoil the surprise. We'll just save it for Tuesday. With that, I'll see you all soon. Go Sens, go.